Good afternoon, everybody. This is Salim Khan with Texas Energy Engineering Services, and I will be going over the preliminary energy assessments, and I'll be giving you an overview. So we will get started. Let's go to the first slide. All right, so this is a part of a SECO Facilities and Infrastructure Energy Management webinars. We've already gone over 3 webinars previously, and today we are going over the preliminary energy assessment overview, and tomorrow we will be going over some water wastewater energy efficiency considerations in water wastewater facilities. So today's goal is to just go over the preliminary energy assessment, give you an overview and kind of introduce you to the SECO PEA services that they offer free to people who request this service. And I'll be going over in more detail as we go through the presentation. So again, I'd like to welcome everybody. This seminar is part of the SECO Schools and Local Government Energy Technical Assistance Program. And part of this program is we provide free preliminary energy assessments and energy technical assistance to schools and local government across the state of Texas. There's a specific process how to participate in this thing, and I'll go over those details later in the presentation. A couple of housekeeping items. A PDF of the presentation will be available and will be distributed to all the participants. The video recording of the presentation is also available, but I understand it has a little delay, so it might be a day or two later where you'll have the video presentation. As we go through this presentation, there are, I believe, at least 1 or 2 locations where we may have some polling questions. So a poll question will be where we may be asking a question and you provide your response, and then we'll share the answers basically. And just an FYI, if you all have questions, we will be trying to answer them at the end of the presentation. But at the same time, if we can't get to it, we definitely will get back with you after the presentation, either via phone or an email response. So any questions that have been posed will be answered either today or soon thereafter. So just wanted to let you all know a couple of housekeeping items. So what I like to do is actually just define what an energy audit is, and almost everyone is familiar with it, but it's good to go and kind of reinforce what the purpose of an energy audit is. So one of the first steps involved in energy cost control of the facilities. So energy audit is one of the first steps involved in energy cost control of the facilities. Energy audit or survey consists of examination of the facility, how this facility uses energy, determining cost of energy for the facility, recommending operational changes, low cost measures, recommending cost-effective equipment upgrades. That will be covered in typical energy audit. And in the end, a report development. A report is generated that will have all the findings in there. So this is the general purpose of an energy audit, and just thought I'd just quickly touch base on that. This other question has been posed a number of times, and people, there's some confusion on what are the different type of energy audits, or what are the basic types of energy audits. So we'll be spending a minute or 2 on this slide just to give you a quick overview of the energy audit, what are the different types of energy audits, and what are the slight differences, or what are the major differences between them. So preliminary energy assessment, also known as PEA, sometimes also called preliminary energy audit, or initial energy audit or survey, or walkthrough survey or assessment. So preliminary energy assessment has got these different names people have given it to them. Just keep in mind that there's a slight difference in scope, so it is very important when you're looking into the scope of the audit as to what will exactly be covered and what will be presented. The detailed energy assessment or analysis, which is sometimes called DEA. Some people call it comprehensive energy analysis, CEA. Private sector calls it investment grade audit, which is IGA. Lone Star program, the State Energy Office calls this utility assessment report, or a UAR. So again, different names for detailed energy assessment. The most important thing is that you need to have a general knowledge about the scope of the services that will be covered in the detailed energy assessment. Primarily, the steps involved you will see later on in an initial energy or PA and the DEA are almost similar, but there's a greater attention to detail in the detailed energy assessment. So that's primarily the major difference. You will also come across where ASHRAE has categorized energy audits, level 1, 2, and 3. So again, very important to realize that you know, there's a difference in scope, and then you need to know what you want to have or what people are presenting to you. So the SECO PAs that are presented fall somewhere, if you are an ASHRAE buff, will fall somewhere between 1 and 2, so we call it a 1.5 level. So it's a pretty comprehensive energy assessment that you get from the PEA, but I'll go over again as we go through. You'll see that as I go through the rest of the presentation. So again, just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of there are different type of energy audits. It all depends on the scope and the level of information you're requesting. So just please keep that in mind as we move forward. So the first poll question is going to appear: have you conducted any kind of energy audit or any of your facilities in the past 2 years? And I'll leave the poll open for a little while. All right, so we're going to close the poll, and I'm going to show you the results. So 55% have said yes. 0% have said yes, detailed energy audit or investment grade audit we've done, and 36% have said that we've not conducted any energy audit in the last 2 years, and 9% said that we've done that, both PEA and DEA, in the last 2 years. So 36% no energy audit, 9% have conducted PEA and DEA, and 55% have said we have done some sort of energy audit in the last 2 years. Very good. That gives me an idea as to what to stress basically over here. So just before you do any energy audit or we get into detail of the PEA process, I wanted to give you a quick overview of how the energy distribution is within a given facilities. So for a K-12 facilities, K through 12 facilities, schools and so forth, and on the right side you will see the office building, which could be you know, different commercial offices or local government offices over there. What you will see a common theme over there is that you will see that almost on the school side and the HVAC and the office side, majority of the energy is used to support HVAC operations. Then the second high energy use is in the lighting, and then you will see different other refrigeration, cooking, plug loads, so on and so forth. So that is one of the reasons that you see a lot of emphasis where energy audits are conducted, that there will be projects identified in lighting and HVAC controls related upgrade. So there's a prime reason for that is because that is the majority where most of your energy is being used in the facility. So it's just good to have at least, you know, each facility is slightly different. So your HVAC may be anywhere from 55 to 65%. Your lighting may be slightly less than 18 or more than 18%. But those are things just to keep in mind to just have a good idea as to where the energy is being used within the building. The next slide couple of slides, 2 or 3 of them, I will be just briefly going over what are the typical UCRMs. UCRM stands for Utility Cost Reduction Measures, or energy conservation measure, basically, in other words. And what are the paybacks, typical paybacks? So in buildings, a lot of time there are low cost, no cost measures, and those are typical measures that have 0 to 6 months of payback. In other words, you have very little investment or no investment, and your payback will be pretty much immediate. Then the interior exterior lighting retrofit may have a payback from 2.5 to 10 years. Motion sensors, daylight savings, 2 to 8 years. HVAC retrofit, 7 to 25 years payback. Pretty wide, variety over there. Insulation, 8+ year payback. Commissioning could have anywhere from 1.5 to 5 years of payback. Water conservation measures, 4 to 8 years. Solar thermal pool heating, mostly that's using solar energy for pool heating, 12 to 14 years. The PV, the solar PV systems may have anywhere from 15 to 25 years of payback. Continuing with the typical UCRMs, utility cost reduction measures, the cooling towers, if you have upgrades, higher efficiency cooling towers, 8 to 14 years. Conversion to VAV, which is variable air volume kind of system, 6 to 14 years. Thermal storage systems could be anywhere 12 to 20+ years. Similarly, controls, solar control, window film shading, steam system improvements, and power factor improvements, they all have a range of payback. So some may be on the low end, some may be on the higher end. Now, if you have a wastewater facility or water treatment plant, then these are the different measures that potentially you could have at a facility, and you would see, similar to the building side of it, you got a pretty wide range of paybacks, basically, and wide range within the same kind of utility cost reduction measure too. So the question that is often asked, and I'm going to go quickly back to the building side, is that, okay, why do I have, for a lighting project, I thought my payback will be 2.5 year, and you're telling me about a 5 or 6 year payback. So the most important thing to keep in mind is that the payback is contingent upon how many hours of operation you're using that facility, what is the cost of doing that project. So they could vary from one location to another location, from one site to the next site, depending on the conditions at the site and the bidding environment. So that's why you've got a wide range of paybacks, basically, and that's something to keep in mind, is you have a wide variety of paybacks for different measures, and that is one of the reasons that you want to do an initial assessment or preliminary energy assessment that will kind of narrow this range down and give you a little input on what kind of measures you're going to potentially be having. So again, in order to answer your questions, everybody knows that they've got projects and they have potential paybacks, but where everyone struggles is, what is exactly my payback, or what is the, how can I narrow this wide range down, basically. So the next few slides and there onward, I'll be going over the PEA process, and I'll be going over the State Energy Office PEA process, and I'll give you an overview of what's involved in it. So on your screens now, you should have almost, I call it a 6-step approach. So the first step is a service request, that you have to request a service. You can contact the SECO program manager, or you can contact the engineering firm assigned to your area. And there is a SECO service request form, which is a 1-page form which has been recently updated, and I'll show you just in a minute what that looks like. The second thing is that once you have requested the service or shown interest, then a scope development correspondence will happen, in which case you'll be asked to provide square footage of your facilities. There might be going back and forth, or on emails or on phone, trying to identify the scope of the project. And once we identify the scope of the project, then we'll get an internal SECO approval to go do the PEA project over there. So it is sometimes it's also useful that we do an on-site need assessment, a quick on-site meeting, take a quick look at the facilities. So it depends on individual owner and client basically. Once, so assuming you have signed the service request and we have developed the scope, we got approval on the scope, the next step is to gather data and an on-site survey and to schedule an on-site survey. So gathering data primarily is the utility data, which will be electric, natural gas, and water. Then an on-site survey of the selected facilities. Hopefully by then we have already ironed out which of the facilities we want to look at, and an on-site survey will primarily be focused on utility cost reduction measures, identifications on these facilities. So that's an on-site phase of this overall process. The next step is that once the initial data has been gathered and some on-site has happened, then analysis will start. We will do energy performance indices for those of you who attended the previous workshops, and I'll be briefly going over this later on too. Those are pretty important indices that you have to have, and they are developed as a result of this process. And then we quantify utility cost reduction measures, cost and savings, so some analysis are done. Now, one thing just want to keep in mind, the difference between the PEA and a detailed energy assessment is that this is a quick, dirty approach. Basically, we have limited funds, so we like to do a very quick analysis. It's not an in-depth analysis, but in almost all the cases, I find that you will find the answers within close to 5 to 10% of if you did a detailed energy assessment. So, anyways, analysis are done. And then the next step is a report development. So we develop the PEA report in which you will see all the baselines. You will see any operation and maintenance measures that were recommended, any utility cost reduction measures that were recommended for implementation. Also, if we had input on your energy management plan, so we normally in the need assessment phase will be asking you, do you have an energy management plan? Do you want us to look at that and give you feedback, so on and so forth? And in the report development phase, you will see there's some discussion, actually identification of funding options, how you can fund these projects. The next step is that, once the report is finalized, then the report is presented. We have done it an on-site. We have done it through the similar webinar or a seminar like this, a go-to-meeting basically. And then we discuss each section of the report, discuss funding options in more detail, and outline what could be the possible next steps. So you see the step 1 through 6 of the PEA process, in which it's a pretty comprehensive process. So the first question I'm asked usually is, how long would it take to do a PEA of my facility? So it could take anywhere from, it could be as fast as 30 days and it could take as much as 60 to 90 days. Mostly I would say an average of 45 days for a PEA. There are a lot of things that we are dependent and you're dependent on. Getting the utility data on time, clearing up any issues that we may have arisen during the on-site, and so on and so forth. So just for journal purposes, I would say that the PEA process could take anywhere from 30 to 45 days. Okay, so this question is, how do I take part in the SECO program, which is a free, by the way. I want to emphasize that for local government and public entities, this service is free basically. It's a pretty simple form, one-page form in which you will input your basic information over there. You're going to be requesting this PEA services, and primarily the principle of this agreement is, of the service request is that you can read these 3 or 4 bullet points over there. Primarily they are requesting that you allow them to post your PEA on a website, which you can go and find a lot of PEAs already posted on the website. Allow SECO contract to provide walkthrough, so you help, if you've agreed to, you want this service, then you have to actually cooperate and provide access to the site. And, and then literally what is asking is to take good look at the recommended measures and see what you can do to implement those measures. It is not requesting that you have to implement those measures, but it is requesting that you give it due considerations and have a game plan, basically. And then recently they have added a couple of questions over there. Just want to let you all know, those who are not familiar with SECO has a funding program called the Lone Star program, and the next additional questions are primarily they want to know how familiar you are with that, and then if you are interested, then they can provide you more information. Then anybody who has authority, it could be executive director of facilities, ideally the chief executive officer, but anyone in authority could get an approval and sign that, and then you submit it to, on the bottom left side is the State Energy Conservation Office. You can send it through an email or you can mail it. It'll be Stephen Ross at SECO would be the recipient of these preliminary energy assessment requests, basically. So simple one-page form that you fill out, scan it, PDF it, and email it out, and that's how the process starts. In between, if you have questions, feel free to call, basically. Also, just an FYI, I've been told that that we have a handout of this service request, and as a part of this this webinar over there, so you can download it if you see it on your screen. So so just an FYI, but you can always go to the SECO website and download it over there too. Okay, now some of these things we have gone through, but I want to quickly go over it, and I've gone through in previous presentations, not this one. So again, utility data gathering is the most important part of this, the preliminary energy assessment process. We like to have at least 12 consecutive months of utility data. You can have scanned invoices. If you have your own spreadsheets, you can have that. If you've got some sort of software, you can forward the information from that. And a lot of times we can get permission from you or to go to the utility providers, and they can provide us the information. So a number of ways to do that. We want to have electric demand and consumption data, which is kWh and kW, any power factor related information, and all representative charges. So we'll have some information over there. So we need to know the overall cost, basically, not necessarily the total breakdown of all the cost component, but whatever you are paying per month for your electric use. Same applies to natural gas, and if water is part of the scope, same will apply over there. Now, larger facilities, some may have central plants that are serving you know, 1 or 2 campuses, or for example, sometimes you deal with universities and colleges that have multiple buildings served from a central plant. In that case, sometimes we will be requesting if you've got a BTU or individual metering data on each chill water and hot water used on different buildings. So variety of ways to do this, but most importantly, electric and all utility data for 12 consecutive months needs to be in place. Once that is, you provide us that information, you had already previously provided us the square footage of your facilities. So what we will do is develop what we call energy utilization index, sometimes also called energy use index, EUI. And basically it is BTUs per square foot per year. So we will establish that for each building. The same thing, since we have the cost data as required also, so we'll have the annual energy cost index, which is annual energy cost per square foot, which is $1 per square foot per year. So once that information is there, we will have this information, and then later on, when you're getting these reports, you will see something like what you see on your screen. Basically, on the left side is energy utilization index, which is the BTUs per square foot per year for your different buildings or facilities or schools or campuses, basically, or different types of offices you have. If you're a city or local government or a county facility, so you will have this information as a part of the PA report, basically. So it will develop these indices for you and present them in the report. Also in the report, there'll be it doesn't do a detailed rate analysis in the PEA process, usually done in the comprehensive energy assessment process. But in this case, it will do an average utility rate that you're paying for various facilities. So that will be provided. And we might be looking at, for example, if you have a sample utility rate, we might be looking at your 1 month's bill and say, oh, you have potential power factor penalty over there, which is highlighted over there, and we may be wanting to look into a little bit more detail as to what can be done to improve that. So anyways, that's what on the utility rate analysis side is done. Since we have asked for, we very much like to have the demand data, and once we have the demand data, we will be presenting you in the final report for each month how much of kW you have used and what are the charges you have paid for it. Just for FYI, for a typical large facilities, almost anywhere from 30 to 45 to 50% of your electric rate may consist of paying demand charges. So we like to have that, and there are other advantages of having the demand charges, which is which we go into in more detail in the PEA process. One of the other things from your utility data, we are always able to do a load factor analysis, which primarily is consistency of facility use. So for example, we may run into facilities that have a high load factor, which is anything above 40%. Usually, if you've got a load factor of more than 40%, it means that you have some sort of an after-hour operation, or things are running after hours. So as a part of basic utility analysis, we will look at that information, and that will be presented in the reports also. So the other part of in the PEA process is that we might be asking you if you have any interest in sharing if you have an energy management plan, to share with us. And if you don't have one, then we can generate one for you. Primarily, an energy management plan is you make a commitment, you assess your performance and set goals, you create an action plan, you implement your action plan, you evaluate progress, you recognize achievement, and from time to time you reassess your overall goals and objectives. So an energy management plan is good to have. That is something that that is part of the PEA process, and we get into that depending on each individual request and the needs of each individual facility. So that's something that I just want you to be aware of, that energy management plan overview is done in the PEA process also. So typical things that you should be asking: what is an energy management plan? What should it have? Ideally, you should be, if you can answer the questions that I posed on the screen, you will have a pretty good energy management plan. So primarily, who's accountable for energy management? What are your energy savings targets? So you have to achieve, you have to establish goals. How do you monitor, review, and report on progress? Do you have training to support the policy? Very important that do you have training in place that support the type of activities that you want to do? And also ask yourself, do you have the resources available to achieve your targets, basically? So what criteria is used for energy management investment? You should be able to ask that question, whether it should be a loan program, it should be a bond program, or it is maintenance and operation funding, or other source of funding, basically. And do you consider energy efficiency in new capital investments? So normally I would recommend that your energy management plan should also have a little section dedicated to energy efficiency in new designs, maybe going beyond what the code requires. So if you have those kind of things, those kind of questions answered, you can develop a pretty good comprehensive energy management plan. So I believe we have another poll question over here. Do your facilities have an energy management plan? If so, how often do you review and revise it? So the poll should be up, and we will keep it open for 10-15 seconds, and then we'll close it, and I'll share the results. All right, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. So, so it looks like 22% do not have an energy management plan. 11% have it, but they say it's pretty old and outdated. And 67% says, yes, we review and update it very frequently. So that's good news that a lot of people are reviewing and updating pretty frequently. But those of you who don't have it, the SECO PEA program is a good source to actually go through it. And for those who have it, we've also done this is we've reviewed and provided some independent feedback on those energy management plans. So so continuing with the PEA process, one of the other things that you need to keep in mind is that the preliminary energy assessment should also look at low-cost, no-cost measures. And I'll give you some examples with the photographic images. It makes more sense. But, you know, we are looking at routine maintenance. We are looking at equipment scheduling. We are looking at set points. What are the heating set points, what are the cooling set points, what are the operational procedures, and a lot of time we like to ask if they've got guidelines for energy efficiency level of future equipment purchases. So a lot of time I've seen that, for example, previously people used to have guidelines to buy T8 lamps, but what I found out was that the purchasing department is requesting T8 lamps, but since they haven't specified the color rendering index or the temperature basically rating for those lamps, they all don't look alike. So it's very important that there's some consistency over there, and if those kind of questions are posed to us, then we try to answer and provide some guidance basically. So on your screen, you will see a lot of these things you see on your facilities over there. You can see a security light on during the day, which is normally a malfunctioning photocell. You might have a chill water and hot water line. Primarily, there are bad insulation, so that's a thermal image of one of the locations in which we were able to zoom and show how much of energy is being lost over there. And a lot of time you will see at the bottom left is that people have ordered the purchasing department have ordered condensing units, but they forgot to order hail guards with it. As a result of that, over the years, you see the fins are all damaged. So in that case, we'll have a recommendation to order these equipment with hail guards and so on and so forth. So we're doing a quick walkthrough of these facilities, very fast walkthrough basically, because this is a preliminary energy assessment, but anything we come across, we record and then we provide you some feedback on that. Another example is that leaking at the cooling towers we have witnessed a lot of places, and very common is the cooling tower blowdown. So, and if we run into that situation, then we will specifically address that and provide you recommendation on what to do. So those are the typical maintenance and operation measures that we are looking at as we are walking through the facility. Others are that we might come across vending machines that don't have start-stop kind of features in it. The newer machines are required to have that, so we may have some recommendation on that. And a lot of time you will see there are computer labs and other areas which may, things may not be turned off and so on and so forth. So we will identify those things and present that in the report for your consideration basically. A lot of time we come across, and you have come across this many times, where you've got equipment with the field overridden by the maintenance staff because they went and tried to fix something and they forgot to put it back in the auto position. So a lot of times things might be running in the hand position, and that way your EMS is not really controlling that basically. So if we come across those things, we'll identify and let you all know. Part of the PEA process is that on-site walkthrough of the facility. So we do a equipment inventory, get a feel for what kind of equipment it is, and then we do some visual observations. And those we primarily zoom on the areas that are old and inefficient, so that we can have some recommendations on those. Also, a lot of times we are involved in what they call utility meter mapping. I would very strongly recommend that if there's anything you could do is try to have something that you see on the screen in which you identify your meters and locations and so on and so forth. A number of advantages for that, for doing that, but we have done that as a part of a specific request as a part of the PEA process where it was needed. So anyways, that's something that is covered also. So the next few slides I'm going to go over with you, just try to give you an overview of what are the things that we need to watch out and what are the typical examples of technical assistance that we provide. So for example, if you were considering a solar PV system or something like that, of course the manufacturers and website can give you a lot of information, and you can say, I have such and such kW requirement. But as a part of this process, we may be able to go over there and see where there are trees in the way, what kind of impact, and what is the true impact of your site for the solar PV generation. So that has been done in the past, where you see on the top right and left side was a specific PV location analysis done. Similarly, this example down there is where the solar thermal pool heating analysis was done. So again, suitability of site and location is something that we look at when we are looking at these measures. Somebody has asked me, did we look at the controls, HVAC controls? Yes, we have limited resources. A lot of time people have provided us some limited access, monitoring only, and as a result of that, sometimes we come across things that we are able to identify, and then we put them in the report and provide recommendations on how to address that, basically. And a lot of time people have not realized that they have had a problem like that. So in this case, what you see on the screen is we ran into a air handling unit that had a VFD hunting. VFD hunting means that it was ramping up and down. The PID loop was needed to be fine-tuned. So we come across things like that, and we'll identify those things, basically. Sometimes what we do is that, don't rely on, we have limited time, we don't have remote access, and a lot of these things are not available. So we sometimes deploy data loggers to identify trends and what is happening at the facility, and then typically after a couple of days we will ask you to put it in the mail and send it back to us. All is prepaid, basically. So in this case, for example, this was a police headquarters building in which we did an independent data logging showing that the temperatures was always kept very cool, 70 degrees. The cooler you keep, the more energy you're using, and that the lights were remaining on during after hours and so forth, basically all the time. So a lot of time we do things like that to provide some feedback on specific areas or specific projects. Just keep in mind that this is an engineering report, that the PEA is an engineering report, is signed, sealed by engineer in the end. So a lot of time we will be looking at capital investment examples or retrofit options. So you should have the experience to be able to envision what the transformation is going to look like. So for example, on the left-hand side is an example of where a large thermal storage system was supposed to be integrated into an existing thermal plant. So you got to keep in mind that this is a large physical obstruction. Where do you place it? What is the cost of placing it, and so forth? So doing some envisioning so that you have a good cost estimate over there is important. Similarly, on the right side, you see an old boiler system that was upgraded to a new boiler system. And so in the PEA phase, you should be able to go and envision the space and see the transformation. And that's how you come up with a rough cost estimate when you actually physically see this facility, basically. So something to keep in mind, the transformation is very important. So these reports are done by they go through a specific QC process before they go to you. And what does a, so I've been asked, what would my report have? What would a PEA report have? The best way to describe this is that I put a table of content over here. So you will see a PEA report will have an executive summary, and the table of contents, it will have facility description, energy consumption, and performances. Remember all the data you gave us. We present them we analyze them and present them in the report. Also, we are doing Energy Star Portfolio Manager. So if there is a need for doing an Energy Star Portfolio Manager, we normally will enter the data, and if there's a request made that we need to be trained on it, then we actually do a web-based training for individual client that has asked for this service. So basically, that Energy Star portfolio manager will be there. Some energy accounting, utility rate analysis, energy legislation overview, recommended maintenance and operation procedures, all the things that we've come across or you've given us feedback, utility cost reduction measures. So this is the section in which we will be identifying lighting, HVAC controls, commissioning, any other project. Basically, what is the potential cost of that project and what are the potential savings for that project. So that utility cost reduction measures over here will have the description of the project, the potential cost, the potential payback of the project, basically. And then we will have some input on your energy management policy. Then there's a discussion on specifically on the SECO Lone Star funding options for the projects, and additional funding options may be identified also. So this is what the report will look like, and then in the appendix you will have all your utility data, all the information that was used to generate your report will typically be backed up in the appendices, basically. So something to keep in mind is, let me go back to over there, that most of the utility data that came from us will already be in the appendix, and then you can have that as a reference, basically. So very important, the appendix G over there is Energy Star portfolio reference material. So we have developed a specific training material which we go over with you, and that material you will see in the appendix also. So this is what the report will have, and it will be covering all the items that were discussed. So next couple of slides, I'm going to quickly go over some case studies, which I call them case studies. These are recent examples of the PEA that was done from the SECO Schools and Local Government Program. So this is an example of City of Laredo. Close to $6.6 million of projects were identified with a payback of 3.5 years. And primarily, I want to let you all know that this was mostly water utility district. So there were a lot of measures for water and wastewater treatment plant, and some of the measures are identified over there. So we looked at the buildings and their water wastewater treatment plants and had some recommendations. The biggest portion of the savings was doing leak sensing technology applications and improvement in the distribution loops. So that was done. The City of Laredo, as I understand, has funded some of these, is planning to fund some of these projects from their own bond funding in the future, some of them from their O&M, and there one or two low cost measures were identified that they are looking at reviewing and implementing that will have immediate payback. And some of it, I believe they are going to be applying for a small loan, basically not for the whole amount, but for a certain amount of it. So people take this report and then they have all the good information and they use it as they feel fit, basically. Second example over here is a recent project done in San Antonio ISD, close to $5.4 million project identified, 9.9 year payback, close to $500,000 savings. The projects were in lighting, HVAC upgrades, mostly chiller upgrades, occupancy service, a couple of boiler upgrades, retro commissioning, and so on and so forth. The key thing over here is this asterisk. You see that the implementation costs buy down. So in order to keep the overall payback within 10 years, there were projects that had longer, the overall payback was longer. As a result, there was some amount that was recommended that the San Antonio ISD budget from their own funds to keep the overall payback within 10 years, basically. So this next slide over here is to give you all an example of that the SECO PEA program does not discriminate against you're a small or a very large facility. So the level and the depth of service that you are going to get is going to be the same. So you can see over there is an example of Goose Creek ISD. Then you see Jim Hawk County had a small project, 110,000 implementation cost, 7.5 year payback. Then you see some city projects with 3,000 and 11,000 implementation cost and paybacks, and you see a small ISD with $28,000 in implementation, close to 20 and 6.2 year payback. So So the SECO PA process is provide services to all those ask for it, and there is everyone has found it very useful, whether they are a small entity with a lot of staff in house, or whether they are a large entity, basically. Okay, specific challenges in doing a PA is a PA is a valuable tool, but you need to have some resources to gather utility data and facility data. Site access, it is required that you provide the PA service provider a site access. So, but usually this is limited to 2 or 3 days, or 1 or 2 days for that matter, and in which we just need to be able to provide some escort so they can open some of the mechanical rooms and so on and so forth. Sometimes it is very, very useful for a lot of people can now do that. They provide us remote access to their control system, so we're able to review and provide some feedback that way too. Then, deciding on which UCRMs make sense. So the analysis part of it is challenging. You have to spend some time reviewing and identifying and prioritizing your projects, and most importantly, you need resources, which is cost and time. Now, the advantage of the SECO PA process is that you could get all these things that I went over with very, very limited your own resources allocated to it. So you could do this on your own, or you could have SECO PA team come and do this for you. It is a very seamless integration into what you all are doing. So again, if time and resources are an issue, this is an excellent way to actually go review your opportunities. So what are the benefits of PEA? It is a valuable planning tool. Almost everyone that we have discussed or delivered a report have looked at this thing and say, oh, this could help me in budgeting, whether they are doing an in-house budgeting or they're wanting to do some bond planning and so on and so forth. So it's a valuable planning tool. It also develops a baseline development, and so then someone from outside have looked at it and developed a baseline. It also can trigger energy tracking, basically, and prioritize investment is very important. So you will have the cost of the potential projects, the payback of the projects, so it kind of prioritizes all your projects for them. That way you can decide which one you want to take, which one you want to undertake now, which one do you want to undertake in the future. It will also identify some low-cost, no-cost measures, and also from time to time, people have specific issues with the energy or comfort related. So we are able to actually spend some resources on that and provide them with an answers to potential issues or problems that might have. And then it will identify the funding options, so you will know how you can fund some of these projects. And most importantly, you will have a good roadmap for utility cost savings, basically. So the main benefit of doing the PEA when you get this report is that you will have a roadmap, a document that you could use as a guide to basically do your future budgeting, your planning, and so on and so forth. So that's the most important aspect of doing a PEA. Again, all of this is done at no cost to the public entity. Only public entity can apply to this thing, and that also schools, local governments, the cities and counties primarily. So with this, what I will do is that we are going to go into the questions and answer session. Just an FYI, my information is over there, and also the information of Stephen Ross, his office number and email, and my office and email is there. So feel free to reach either one of us if you've got specific questions or want to do some follow-up on this thing. So I'm going to take a look at to see if there are any questions, basically. And Okay, so there was a question about the presentation slides of this and previous webinars that we have. Absolutely, we will be sending those out, and the request has been noted and will be provided. So there's a question, is there any PEA report templates? I would say that there are no templates, but you can actually go to the SECO website and download sample reports. That was one of the reasons that I want to just give the table of contents, basically. So these are the contents of the PEA report that I'm showing on the screen. There is no specific template, but this is the journal outline of the report that you expect to see as a part of this process. And again, we'll be glad to provide you with specific examples, or you could also go to the SECO website and download some of these reports over there. Any other questions? Wonderful. Okay. Well, I hope I've given you some basic information on the PEA process and provided you some fundamental information on how you can participate in the SECO program. Feel free to do a follow-up questions if you all have. Feel free to contact me. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might think of later on. In the meantime, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. And again, thank you very much for taking part in this webinar. Thank you.